Okay, hello, thank you for joining us. Some people are early, there's still 5 minutes to go before we shoot the webinar for real. So if I can just brief you please and ask you to make sure you have a notepad with you and a pencil probably, so you can ask or note any questions that you want to ask. So you can email us and give us some feedback. I'll come back in 1 minute's time and we can then move toward the webinar, which will start on time. Hello again, glad you're with us. There's some more people joining. 4 minutes to go. Those that have just joined, please, I've said to other folks, make sure you've got a notepad and pencil to ask questions. Everyone's with us that needs to be here. We're ready to go. 3 minutes for the webinar to start. I'll give you a call 3 minutes out. Three minutes to go, so 1 or 2 more joining us. Glad you're here, and we'll be starting the webinar in just a few minutes' time. Speak to you then. People still coming in, numbers are building quite nicely. 2 minutes left, you'll have some light music in between time. I haven't got a clue who composed it, so I won't mention that, but we'll crack on. I'll see you in 2 minutes. One minute to go, and we look forward to catching up in full when all the numbers are here. So welcome to the webinar. This is only an introductory webinar, just to sort of take you through the preliminaries, what we intend to do, how we intend to do it, and the benefit you would receive by listening in and tuning into these webinars. Just by way of background, I've been in financial services and regulation for the last 50 years, so I'm getting used to it. And everyone in our team have worked with regulated firms and still are working with regulated firms. Our company, iFact, has been working with firms to introduce them to regulation, help them live with, adopt regulation, take it on as best business practice, literally as a habit. To get on board and be comfortable with regulation, it's not just one webinar or one event, it is a sequence of events over time. So we're running through a sequence of webinars. I'll take you through that sequence. We are really regulatory consultants. We know our business, we know regulation. We're not estate agents. So we need to understand estate agents. We need your feedback, we need your questions, and then we can tailor the webinars to suit you. I'm in fact being joined by two estate agents. Katie, bless her, is here in the studio. Hi, Katie. And Katie comes from a background of a small estate agency on the Isle of Wight, started by her father. When it comes to client ID and regulation, which are completely new to them, it's quite different from other firms. Katie, on the island, has been there all her life. She knows her clients. She knows the vendors. Been doing a home viewing. She'll meet Mr. and Mrs. Vendor and probably knows them by reputation, certainly if they're business people. And we'll be listening to Katie and hearing her point of view, which is that this regulation is grotesquely over the top. Also working with us is Lars, and he's pretty well at the other end of the scale. Lars can't be here today. He's going to join us by telephone, so at least we'll pick up his questions. Now, Lars is a director of a very large estate agency. They have offices all the way from East London through Canary Wharf, the city, going down through the West End and Knightsbridge and Mayfair. So a full range of properties by way of pricing. They are letting agents as well as estate agents. They sell. And it's not unusual for them to sell property for millions of pounds, literally. And on some of these occasions, they may not meet the vendor. It's one property in a portfolio. It could be a company owning it. It could be an individual. And the buyer could be a corporation or individuals from overseas. Completely opposite from Katie. I think, Lars, I'll be asking you a very blunt question. On earlier conversations, you did say this regulation's coming in at a very bad time. Profits are down. You're working hard all the time, a great deal to do, and you have enough problems without regulation. I can understand that. This is the same for all the firms. So we're trying to deliver these webinars and the manuals and the guidelines in small, bite-sized sections, so each can be taken on board fairly comfortably, and we'll be taking it in logical sequence. That which you need to know, that which you need to do, and all the tools for regulation we'll be delivering to you over time. If I can really start with you, Katie, please. This is your first time into regulation. Can I ask you, please, your main concerns and why you think it's over the top? What points do you think are relevant, and what help should we be to you?
Well, on the island, myself and my father, we know most of our vendors. We know them, we identify them, and the same thing goes for all of our buyers. We know them as friends. We socialise with them in the community, in the sports clubs, and so all of this ID for us is totally irrelevant. There is nothing in it for us, with no benefit, just hard, detailed, bureaucratic work. You say protect. What do you mean by protect, John? Okay, Katie,
it's a valid point. The word protect comes up in quite a few of the text and HMRC. I'll endorse that one because I've been doing this for a lot of years for literally thousands of firms, and I do know firms that have been targeted. I want to try and avoid the detail at this stage, but some firms, particularly firms like yourself on the Isle of Wight, you don't really think about these mega crooks and mafia crimes and big stuff. Once a firm targets you, they want you to trade property for them. Now, there is property on the Isle of Wight that some of the crooks will perceive as a nice little hideaway. Thank you very much. That would suit me nicely. When you try and check the ID, something somewhere doesn't ring the right bells, you're cautious, so you might just walk away and not go back to the client and ignore them. So if they want you to trade, they think you're soft on money laundering, they'll come back and put in a hook. Typically with an estate agent, then they put someone on drugs or they put someone under an enormous amount of pressure. So they'll put pressure on that person to say, you'll do our trade. Okay, if not, this person's in trouble. It could be your family member, it could be anybody. Now, most of the crooks going around are looking for a soft firm rather than a firm that's fully prepared, looking for a soft target. If the message goes out that you are prepared, you know money laundering, you know what it's about, you might well report it because you're all geared up. They might just say, walk away, we'll find somebody else to do a deal with. And that's how you protect yourself. It's yourself and your firm. Well worth protecting. And that's all the way through. So in your own self-interest, get a grip on AML. Well worth it. We seek to protect you. I'm glad to say that we've now got Lars on the telephone. Lars, as you know, has got a very large city firm, Keaton's. Lars, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning, John. I can hear you loud and clear, yeah.
All right, fine. Thanks, Lars. We had a conversation about this directive coming in some time ago, and you did mention it wasn't coming in at the best time?
Yeah, the industry experiencing some challenging times at the moment, and then there's no signs of that changing in the short term. So, yeah, any regulation or legislation that we've got to put into place is it can be seen as a bit of a burden, but yeah, it is what it is, and we'll deal with it accordingly.
We've been working with you for some time as a consultancy, Lars. What, in your blue sky thinking, what would you want to have delivered to you to make your life easier?
I think for us it was to partner up with a firm that could make things simple for us and just give us that guidance. You know, there's so many questions over each transaction, and to have that clear guidance and experience is what a company like us need. Okay,
there's two more points, Lars. One is, I know you've got your money laundering sorted out. We've been delivering courses for you now for a couple of years, and that's on your own initiative. You're the MLRO, so you've nominated yourself some years back and you've got a grip. The new legislation requires every MLRO to have a deputy. How is it you're going to address that, or have you had some thoughts, perhaps one per branch or something?
Yeah, it's something we thought about carefully, and of course,
you've done that.
Yeah, exactly. We have. Yeah, one person, being myself in this case, is not always available 24/7. So it was important that we had a deputy in place. So we thought about that hard and clear, and we've managed to get another director, company director in that position, Tony George, and he will be my deputy. So in my absence, he'll always be there on call to deal with any case that's raised that is raising alarm bells.
Well done. You're ahead of the curve. Last part, Lars. A lot of this, the driving force behind this from HMRC is that estate agents, all of whom I think are reluctant to come in the realms of scope of regulation, but you are the only persons, when people are buying property, you do see the buyer and the vendor. Now, I mentioned to you some time ago, and I believe some of your high value properties, that's not the case.
Yeah, no, this is very relevant to us. We're a centrally London-based agency, and often selling properties from well north of 2 million and upwards. That's not uncommon for us. Some of those will be off-plan, new build, and quite often those buyers are overseas. They could be China-based, Hong Kong-based, UAE, or India. There is real variation there, and for us to make sure we're going through the identification process properly, it can be a struggle. You get different passports from different parts of the world, and we've got to make sure we're doing our due diligence, in every case. And often these buyers, not only do you never get to meet them, they often don't even come to see the property they're buying. Again, that's not uncommon, believe it or not. Buyers aren't coming to the UK to even see what they've purchased. So to get the due diligence done at point of agreeing the transaction, you know, there are concerns there.
Okay, well, I have to say that we are delivering a series of webinars followed by notes and slides for training, so it is very, very much a senior manager's DIY kit. We do that. There's no complete answer to your question, Lars, but what we are doing to try and pick up those loose ends, the more complicated cases, we will be having a help desk available manned by trained consultants. So a lot of these cases you've got overseas buyers, they are a one-off. So as the MLRO, you can bounce off your ideas with our technicians and consultants, and then collectively we'll design a compliant way of identifying that particular customer. So we'd like to think that will be a complete solution, but until we have one in, Lars, we work on it, then not a lot we can do. But I think the help desk should be there. Lars, thanks for your time. We look forward to working with you further.
Great, thanks very much, John.
Cheers, pal. Bye-bye. So having had the first conversation, we're going to go through a whole sequence of webinars and notes, and it is very much a journey. And we're going to work with you to take you from your current position and move through until such time as you can be fully compliant with all the regulators' requirements. A journey over time. I'll try and summarise that. The first part is that we need to identify the executives or the persons within your company that are going to carry this forward. In all of the notes from HMRC, you'll say nominated persons will be coming up. This is the MLRO, the Money Laundering Reporting Officer, and that person is absolutely crucial. Needs to be, or should be, a director or someone senior. It certainly has to be a person with sufficient seniority that if a transaction is suspicious, they have the authority to say, no, stop, don't do it. So it's someone that has authority. We also need a deputy, so if that person in authority is on holiday, away, or for whatever reason, then there's a deputy. In Lars's case, he's already appointed a deputy, again, another director, which is great. Another option for firms, if you have got a number of branches, you may have a deputy for each branch, so someone somewhere knows what they're doing. But it is someone that must start as the senior manager. This person will be doing most of the heavy lifting. Now, we're there with you to help it, but all of our webinars from beginning to end are essential viewing for the senior managers and particularly the MLRO. Once the MLRO and deputies appointed, then the whole of the compliance regime needs to be appropriate and proportionate to your firm. Very individual. So the way in which you carry the whole thing forward from Katie's small firm will be quite different from Lars. We are hopefully providing you with a DIY kit and all the notes. You'll get the notes sent through to you and the manuals in an e-copy as well as a hard copy, so you can customise it with the name of your firm and the risks for your firm. It'll all be very individualised to your firm. Any challenges you have, of course, we have a help desk there to support you. With the next webinar, we'll be focusing on the registration with HMRC. Again, a key function for the MLRO. That's in the first manual that we'll deliver to you. And then go on to the risk rating. The risk rating I would anticipate is probably a bit of a mystery to you. Historically, most firms have subconsciously or realistically identified risks to your firm, but never really had to have a paper or a system or a process. To help you, in the back of the manual, there'll be a number of templates showing you how you can measure the risk, what those risks are, what you need to measure and how you measure them. And we don't do it in a fairly complicated way. We call it the RAG system, R-A-G, red, amber and green. So that which you deem to be high risk is obviously red, something to monitor all of the time, amber, and the risks that are just good to go or almost no risk, you have as green. In the back of the manual there are examples. So examples where we would highlight red, we would highlight green or whatever. And these give you a guide as to how you mark your own risks. Again, we are trying to provide you with a guide for a DIY help. One of the requirements is also that all of your staff have to be AML aware, anti-money laundering aware. Sorry, I will drop into mnemonics easily. To make them all aware, we are providing a slideshow sequence, well in fact two. I'll run through the slides first of all. Again, it's a webinar, essential viewing for all senior managers. But then you can plug in again and it's essential viewing for all of your staff, not just directors, negotiators, surveyors, office staff, even car park attendants or drivers. The law says all staff. It's only awareness. So they can plug into the slides. It's once a year sequence. We're likely to offer an update each and every year as legislation changes. That webinar is in two modules, a 40-minute and a 30-minute. So you get a break in between the two. You can buy the slides, hard copy, you can buy soft copy. You're also required to evidence that all of your staff are aware. So to do that, then you can show them copies of the slides with delegates' notes on it, and we'll deliver to you a whole set of what we call knowledge verification papers. That's a polite term for a test paper. But they can just go through a multiple choice paper and mark it, or you will mark it. There's 3 different test papers. If they fail one, fail two, there's still the third. So at the end, nobody should fail, it should go on. We're then moving on to the last webinar, and that is very much procedures. This is essential, particularly for senior managers, MLRO. You're required to have a policy, you're required to have procedures, and we've written these in a generic format. So there'll be an example of a large firm, like Lars, complicated, an example, simple, straightforward, as Katie's firm. It's very, very good reference work. You will not remember everything that comes through on the webinars. So it's important you have a work of reference. All of the manuals are self-standing, so one person might want to read just the one that's appropriate to them. Managers need to read all of them and so on. So there is some overlap between the manuals, but collectively, from beginning to end with the slides, it's a comprehensive do-it-yourself kit. So you get everything in a soft format and delivered in a hard format or a durable format which you can use. So one obvious question is cost. We've kept this very simple and very straightforward and a very competitive cost. So the overall package costs £766 plus VAT. So that includes the first webinar, which will take you through identification, HMRC registration, nominated officers, deputies, those details. You get the webinar and you get the notes to support that webinar as a soft copy. So you can print that off and that's your own. It will also include both of the modules for anti-money laundering training, so that can be seen by all of your staff if you wish to impose me upon them, but it's there. You can download the slides and you can have the email slides will be delivered to you so you can run the course for yourself. It will include all of that. It'll include the manual about nominated officers, what you have to do, all your policies, all your procedures. So it's including the template for risk assessment. It includes the steps and the policies and what you have to do for initial identification, for natural persons, for companies, enhanced identification, sanctions list, all of the complications that you really don't want to hear about but read, then they are all delivered to you as one package. Quite obviously, we cannot deliver everything that's simple and answers everyone's questions. Just not possible. What we can do is back that up with a help desk, and the 766 does include 1 year's subscription to a telephone help desk. So we can answer your questions by telephone, then that's included in the package. So we'll send you an invitation. If you wish to take it up, we'd love you to join us, and we'll work on all of the seminars and support you all the way through for the first 12 months with the help desk. By the way, the help desk is 12 months from the date of the last webinar, so you can work on through. Hopefully we can work with you delivering a DIY kit to take you safely, comfortably and understandably from the beginning all the way through the journey till the end, where not only are you compliant with the regulatory requirements, it is best practice, it becomes a habit, and it is no problem. Indeed, it is your own embedded best business practice. Wish you well and hopefully see you on the next webinar. Bye.